I am Laverne Lewis Gaskins. Legally Speaking is brought to you by the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys, GABWA. This season, Legally Speaking will focus on attorney development, covering topics that help us all become better attorneys and grow in our profession. Inherent in our careers as attorneys is the notion that we should always seek to promote the rule of law and justice. Today, we are joined by attorney Tabitha Ponder Beckford. She is with the Judicial Council of Georgia's Committee on Access to Justice program to discuss how we may grow as attorneys and positively impact our communities by promoting justice for all. Welcome to Legally Speaking. Welcome to Legally Speaking. Now, I can call you Tabitha, right?
Yes, please do.
Okay, and you're a member of GABWA.
I am a member of GABWA, yes.
Well, we are here to talk about Access to Justice, the project, but if you could share with our viewers, tell us about your career path and how did you arrive at being an attorney for Access to Justice? How did you arrive at this role? And tell us a little bit about your role, too.
Okay. So first, I've practiced law for about 20 years. And for the most part of my career, I practiced law in South Georgia. I'm from Moultrie originally, which is a very rural area in the bottom of Georgia. And I started out practicing law in the city of Valdosta as an insurance defense attorney and went on to work in Tifton, Georgia, which is the 5th Judicial Circuit. And I worked as a public defender for a few years, left that office and started my own law firm. And I continued to work with public defense for the Tifton Judicial Circuit. Did a lot of the contracts for some of the juvenile conflict cases.
Yeah.
And so working in rural Georgia and being a minority, you tend to see a lot of access to justice issues, especially in those areas where there are very limited resources. You see people coming to you, people who need a lot of legal assistance. Yeah. And so I would always in my firm do as much as I can, help in areas that I can help in. But being in that role, you can only do very limited amounts of work. And so what I saw this position that came open and it really appealed to my interests and thought I would apply for it, and has a way that I could really serve at a deeper level.
So it sounds as if your work experience properly prepared you for this opportunity. It seems like it's just a perfect fit. Well, talk to us about exactly what is the Access to Justice Committee, and was it established, and what is its mission?
So the Access to Justice Committee actually is the successor to the Access, Fairness, Public Trust, and Confidence Committee. Mouthful. Yes, I'm so glad that name was changed. Yeah. But at any rate, that committee was started by the Judicial Council, and Justice Benham has been the chair since the inception of the committee, as well as Justice Hunstein. She was very, very active, and they co-chaired the committee until her retirement. And so he's been chairing the committee, and it started out, there were a lot of equality issues, a lot of access issues as it relates to indigents. So on the criminal side, it started a lot. And so now we're seeing a push and a turn more now for civil access to justice, which is where we've been kind of focusing on that a whole lot lately.
Yeah. I think people who have a passing familiarity with the program, they're not aware that it covers both civil and criminal. So that's important to share. And could you tell us whether or not you work with the State Bar of Georgia? Do you collaborate with the bar?
Yes, I'm so happy to say that. I've been in this role for about 2 years now. And when I came into the role, we were not partnering. And I was going down some of our initiatives, and I'm looking, and I said, well, we can, kind of get back working on this and that. And every time I would bring up an issue, they would say, Mike Monahan at the State Bar will probably be a good reference for you, which he has the Access to Justice Committee for the State Bar. So now we have actually partnered together, and we've actually adopted the Justice for All strategic plan that was from the State Bar's Access to Justice Committee. That we've actually adopted it, and we're kind of driving those initiatives now. And I'm the liaison. We have this pilot project, and we can talk a little bit about that later. But we're definitely teaming up, and so I'm on their committee, and Mike Monahan is a part of my committee for the Judicial Council.
So you're working in concert with one another.
Yes.
In anticipation of interviewing you, I did a little bit of research about the Access to Justice program, and I understand that the program engages in engages the faith-based communities. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay, well, in 2018, we, again, this is when the partnership took place with the state bar. And through the Justice for All strategic plan, there were two levels in that plan, two different components, I should say. Part A was about law libraries and self-help centers throughout the state.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second piece was about reaching out to faith-based entities and having them to become partners in this access to justice work.
Yeah.
And so what we've been doing is there's a real strong push now that some of the laws have changed with regards to record restrictions. We have been reaching out to faith-based institutions, and they have partnered with us. And actually, taking it back, last year we actually did a huge program, and we invited faith leaders from all over the state to come. And this project started and really kind of flowed from the Ferguson movement.
Okay. Okay.
And so what we did was call a lot of faith leaders to Atlanta. We covered their expenses, got them here, and had the conversations. And judges were there, and attorneys, as well as faith leaders. And we got to hear from them. And they talked a lot about, yes, we have a lot of need throughout the state, especially in the rural areas. And that, we don't know where to go for help. We have a lot of parishioners coming to us, but we don't know where to send them.
I can imagine that was extremely well attended.
It was.
Yeah.
We actually ran out of capacity, so it was that needed, and they were that interested. And some of the faith leaders from that movement, that they have agreed to be a part of this project that we're working with the state bar.
See,
and
that is truly a testament to the value of what you're doing and your organization. Talk about the significance of law libraries in Georgia as it relates to your organization and your program.
Law libraries are very dear to me. Even, back again, coming from a rural part of Georgia, I see how valuable a law library is. And now when law libraries started, they were started for lawyers.
Yeah.
And, I've been practicing for 20, and you've been practicing
for 25.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we used to go to law libraries, but we probably can attest to the fact that we don't use law libraries.
No, not as much.
Not really, And so the current user really is the general public now.
Mm-hmm.
And so the need has changed. And so what we need to do now is, go through these law libraries. We have this infrastructure of law libraries there, and bring them up to date for the current user. Mm-hmm. Now, there are supposed to be 46 law libraries throughout the state, but in actuality, we have about 5 or 6 that are really adequately staffed.
Just 5 or 6?
Just 5 or 6. And one being our pilot project in Dougherty County. And I'm the liaison for that project. And we got a grant. Now we're out of funds, but it's so needed. The pilot project is servicing at least 40 people a day. And what this center is doing is not, taking the work from Georgia Legal Services, which we work with that program. Mm-hmm. But the law libraries are providing resources. It's kind of the concept. You teach a man to fish, he can eat for the rest of his life. Mm-hmm. So we're providing them to handle their cases right now. There are over 1.2 million self-represented litigants clogging up the Georgia court system.
I think most people who are going to listen to this are not going to be aware of those statistics. And I think it's wonderful that your organization is engaged in the community and truly about access to justice. Because if we're going to be sincere with this notion that we should respect the rule of law and engage people to have access to information that will help them in their cases, then necessarily we have to have law libraries. And I think that's wonderful that your organization is engaged on that level. We've talked a little bit about the law libraries. We talked about the faith-based communities. But how does this information, how how does your organization engage judges? How is this information disseminated to the judges?
Well, really, the AOC, which is the administrative offices of the courts, we're there. We fall under that title, so
Okay.
we're there to support judges. And going back to the mission, which is to improve the public's trust in the judicial branch by promoting meaningful and effective access to the courts and fairness to all people. So, just breaking down the mission, you understand that the number one, I guess, body that we support are judges first. And it's just, providing information to judges, to courts. One particular new project that we have, and we actually partnered with the Indigent Defense Committee. It's a bench card. You might hear a lot about bench cards, but bench card and it's a counter card. We wanted to make it duplicative so that it's kind of dual card, so that we're not giving them too many things to look at. But one side is for judges, and the other side is considered a counter card for people who work at the courthouses. So the clerks, the administrators, and this will let them know what they can and cannot do as it relates to self-represented litigants. What we were finding was some clerks, out of fear of not wanting to be practicing, the unauthorized practice of law, or fall under that, they would just, not want to converse too much with an unrepresented person. And so now we actually reached out to the State Bar, Steve Kukowski. He's gone through it and helped us with it and make changes, and now we're able to disseminate this information, and everybody's excited about this.
Yes, I'm excited about it as an attorney. This is wonderful stuff. Of course, our viewers don't have the benefit of being able to look at this, but they can certainly access this information at the State Bar of Georgia.
They can get it from the State Bar of Georgia. They can reach out to us at the AOC. You can, contact my office, and we'll be able to get it. We'll have it in electronic format.
Okay.
And so it's very accessible.
Okay. Access to justice is about making justice available to everybody.
To everyone.
And that includes individuals who may suffer from a disability.
Yes.
Can you talk about the accessibility to the court within the context of those individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing? Because I can see how that particular challenge will impact someone's access to justice if they can't hear, they don't understand what's going on. So talk about that for just a minute.
Yes, well, that is a huge issue right now. We do want to make sure all of our courts are ADA compliant, and we are working really hard we're working towards compliance. And we have been, there were a few attorneys that reached out to the State Bar as well as the Supreme Court, and have really asked that the bar and the Supreme Court really get involved with ensuring that the courthouses are ADA compliant. Now, as it relates to attorneys, of course, they need to hear. They could miss an objection or something serious. The jurors need to hear. The parties need to hear. And so I think a lot of time persons who are deaf or hard of hearing, sometimes people forget about that disability. And I don't think it's intentional. I think it's because it's not a visual disability. But at any rate, we are working hard to at least make sure everyone who works in a courthouse understands the process. So I've been working along with, we have a working group within our committee. So there are some members on our committee that are in a working group. Dr. Will Simmons is doing an amazing job heading up that working group with us. He's actually the district court administrator, the chairman, so he's doing a great job. And we have actually recruited the 2 attorneys that have given us the complaints and worked along with them to prepare a list of best practices. And we're almost finished with that. Right now, we want to pass it to the Commission on Interpreters so that we're not duplicating work, and make sure they look at our countercard that we're getting ready to release. But it's almost finished, and that countercard will let every person who works in the courthouse know the process, how to establish a process, what to do if they are, confronted with this issue, how to handle it.
That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. During the course of your comments about access to justice, you made references to rural versus urban. And so, this whole issue of access to justice, do you see the impact being different in an urban setting as opposed to a rural setting?
Yes, very, very different. I tease about this, but I say there's the Atlanta metro area, and then there's the rest of state.
Yeah.
And we
Some
know,
people say that. Yeah.
yes, but Georgia is really a huge state, and most of Georgia is rural. And the rural,
Most people don't recognize
they
that.
don't recognize
Yeah.
that. But being from a rural area,
Yeah.
you see things you see Georgia a lot differently when you come from a rural area, and once you get into the rural areas and you start looking at resources, you realize there are very little resources. There are in fact in some areas no lawyers in some counties, and so we have to put this in terms of access. People who are in rural areas, they really have trouble accessing the courts meaningfully.
Yeah.
And so even if it could be internet access, it could be hard to attain. I just saw there was a write-up a few months ago that we're getting expanded services, internet services in South Georgia. But those little things that we take for granted in the urban areas and Atlanta area, it's really important.
And although we recognize there is a problem if you don't have an attorney within that particular area, access to justice, based on what you've shared and done a great job, is not necessarily restricted to increasing the number of lawyers. It's not about just increasing the number of lawyers.
We don't have enough lawyers to handle even the 1.2 million that's in the system right now. We don't have enough, so increasing lawyers isn't the answer. Giving information and giving resources out. I mean, we've surveyed some of the Superior Court judges who are in the area in the Judicial District number 2, where the pilot project is. And those judges have been surveyed, and the ones who did respond noted that they are resetting court 40% less.
Wow.
If that person has gone through a self-help center and gotten resources that they need.
That's
so
incredible.
Economically, it's going to save us. Judicial efficiency will be increased.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the biggie, the expungement projects.
Yes.
Could you share with us some of your experiences with the expungement process in the state of Georgia, and let's talk about the future.
Okay. So I'm excited about this program. Justice Benham and I just left a national program, and I would say at least on 3 different occasions, the panel discussions came back to expungements, or actually record restrictions. So the records are really restricted, so the charge or whatever you're trying to get removed is not totally expunged, but we use the word because that's what people understand and that's what they know to the general public. So, but the correct terminology is record restriction. So I did want to clear that up.
Okay.
But at any rate, the program is going really well. We started in Judicial District number 2, and because I deal with the whole state, it's just easier for me to look at Georgia and districts.
You have to share with our viewers what is that. Exactly.
Yes, I figured I better say that. So when I say Judicial District, Georgia is broken up into 10 judicial districts. And so Judicial District number 2 is southwestern area in Georgia, which includes Dougherty County.
Yes.
So that's a little bit homework for everybody. But at any rate, we started there, and we had 287 people to come to the clinic. And in addition to having the ability to have their records restricted, we also had our self-help center there, and it really was a good idea to bring them on because the self-help center, actually, they're able to do intake for any type of legal case.
Yeah.
So we're really trying to figure out how to expand it. And so we did our second expungement legal clinic was in Valdosta, Georgia, which is still considered Judicial District number 2, but they're so far apart. And because Valdosta, as you know, you're from the area, Valdosta lost their Georgia Legal Services center maybe about 8 or 9 years ago.
Yes.
So they are really suffering in Valdosta, and because they're 2 hours apart, we thought we better, take it.
Right, and the reason why it's probably wise that you had it in Albany and Valdosta, because 2 hours, you're talking about 2 hours one way, so you're talking
Yes.
about 4 hours. So I think it was extremely beneficial to have it in both counties, absolutely.
Yes. Especially considering that they've lost their resources.
Yes.
So we had the clinic there, and it was about 200 people show up. And when we have these clinics, we are like getting great support from the judges from every area, the solicitor's offices, the DA, as well the clerk's office came out in Valdosta, and the attorneys, even on a work day, because we actually had it on a Friday, so we were able to do those restrictions that day. So it's like we brought the court to the community,
Yeah.
and we set up court in the church's annex with the clerk's station, and everything was processed that day.
Absolutely.
And we also had an area for Georgia Legal Services to come in, so they came back to the community that day, which I believe they come down every so often, but we wanted to open it up. So they did intake, as well as our self-help center was there, and they did intake. So we were able to do a whole lot that day.
And it sounds as if once you share the information about the program to those stakeholders, it's clear to those individuals who are involved with the court system that it's beneficial for all individuals involved to have this system in place, correct? This
Correct.
Project in place.
Oh, yes.
So do you have any plans for any other parts of Georgia?
For the pilot project or the clinics?
Either one.
I really would love, we have this proposal that we've been kind of floating around and just trying to get some feedback on it, but I really would love to see one self-help center in every judicial district and let that center act as a hub and just help other law libraries so that we don't have to really reinvent the wheel for all 46 that we're
Yes.
supposed to have. But if we had at least 10 working in the state, it would do it would help a great deal. The one pilot project that's operating in Dougherty County has been servicing people from 91 counties. 91
Oh,
counties
wow.
in the state.
Wow.
We only have 159.
Oh, wow.
So I know if we had one in each judicial district, it would just make a huge difference
Yes.
in the 1.2 million people in the system with no attorneys. And as far as clinics are concerned, we definitely have plans. We just got another grant. I'm so happy. Yes, and so that ensures that we have money to continue the clinics.
Great.
And we are purposefully going in the rural areas. We have gotten calls, of course, Savannah. Looks like Savannah would be our next stop.
Yeah.
As well as we're definitely trying to come to Augusta
Yes.
and Columbus. And then I know the first of the year we'll be up in the North Georgia areas. So we have plans.
Well, you certainly sound like you're going to be extremely busy, and I want to thank you for finding time out of your busy schedule to join us here on the campus of Payne College in Augusta, Georgia. And, of course, we want to thank Payne for allowing us to use their facilities as well. Thank you so much for being with us. And is there anything else you want to share before we close out?
I'm just happy to be back on Payne campus. I actually started college here in 1992.
Wow.
I came here on an academic scholarship, but being from Moultrie, it was about a 5-hour drive for me, and I wanted to be closer to home. But I do appreciate being here today.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It's good being back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
To learn more about today's guests or more about the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys, please visit gabwa.org, GABWA.org. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us about your topics you'd like us to cover on the next Legally Speaking. You can find us on all social media platforms and, of course, at Gabwa's Legally Speaking. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time on Legally Speaking.